Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2022 Subaru Outback Wagon, we're going to be showing you how to install the EcoHitch Trailer Hitch receiver. But before we do that, why don't we check this out and make sure it's the right hitch for you. When it comes to the Outback, it seems like people use these to do a ton of different things. You see them out on the road pulling some trailers around and using all different kinds of accessories, really, whether it be a bike rack or a cargo carrier. And so if it were me and I was looking for a hitch, I would want something that could handle all those different types of tasks, right? And with the setup like this one here, it's going to allow you to do just that. And one of the things I do like about the EcoHitch is the appearance of it, how it's going to look. For the most part, it's going to be completely hidden. Really, the only thing you'll be able to see is a receiver tube opening here. And so it does a good job of kind of looking like a factory option. And honestly, on the back of the Subaru, it looks right at home. Something I did notice about this one is the hitch comes out past the bumper just a little bit. Don't come so far out it's going to bother you, but the benefit of that is giving us more than enough clearance. That way we can take folding accessories and store them upright and not have to worry about them hitting our car or anything like that. So I know those types of things are really popular on these Outbacks, so that could work for a lot of you. With that said, this hitch is going to have the 2" by 2" receiver tube opening. It's super common size. A lot of stuff's going to work with it. And at the end, there's a reinforced collar for a little bit of extra support. It is going to use the standard 5/8 pin and clip. Keep in mind though, pin and clip doesn't come included. If you need one, not really a big deal. You can get it here at eTrailer. And these safety chain openings are going to be a little bit on the smaller side, but they should still give us enough space to use just about any size hook that our trailer might have. This hitch is going to have some pretty good weight capacities. As far as the maximum gross tongue weight rating goes, it's going to be 525 pounds. That's going to be the amount of weight pushing down on the hitch. So pretty high number. And you should be able to use just about any size bike rack or cargo carrier that you'd want to, for example. As far as the hitch's maximum gross trailer weight rating goes, that's going to be 3,500 pounds, or the amount of weight pulling on the hitch. So weight of the trailer plus anything that you might have on it. I do always like to suggest, though, it's never a bad idea just to check in your Subaru's owner's manual. That way you can make sure how much weight you can pull safely. With that in mind, if you are going to be pulling a trailer around, you're going to want the lights to work on it. That way people around you know what's going on. And to accomplish that, you can always grab some trailer wiring. Now let's go ahead, just grab a couple of measurements. That way we can try to figure out what type of hitch mounted accessories will work best. If you go from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, that's going to be right at about 16 inches. So if you are towing, chances are really good you can use a ball mount that has a straight shank. If you go from the center of the hitch pin hole to the very edge of our rear bumper, that's going to be about 1.5 inches. And we kind of talked about this earlier, but you can use that measurement to figure out exactly if any of those folding accessories can be stored upright without hitting the back of your Subaru. I feel like this one is a good compromise, kind of falls in the middle in terms of how it's going to look and the weight capacities. So for example, there's some other hitches that I personally think look a little bit better. I'm kind of partial to the eTrailer one. I really like the finish and it looks good. But those are going to have a little lower weight capacities. Might not be a big deal to some people, but might be to others. And then there's also a hitch that's visible for the most part. I mean, you're going to be able to see it kind of hanging down and everything. But the trade-off to that one is it's going to have really high weight capacity. So if you really only plan on towing heavier stuff, that one might pique your interest a little bit more, put your mind at ease knowing you kind of got overkill in terms of what it can handle. So it's really just going to kind of boil down to what you're looking for and what you're trying to get out of the hitch. But other than that, as far as getting this installed, really not too bad. You do have to remove your rear fascia, but don't let that intimidate you. Subaru makes it really easy. I mean, there's really only a handful of fasteners that you need to remove, and that's about it, really. They make it really straightforward. So as long as you stay focused, this is something that you should be able to do. But with that said, why don't we go ahead, pull into the garage, and put it on together now. To begin our install, we're going to be here at the back of our Subaru, and we need to remove our rear bumper cover to get room. And not really a big deal, Subaru makes it pretty easy, but first thing we need to do is remove our tail light. That way we can get to some fasteners along this edge here. So if you look here, we're gonna have two plastic screws holding in this shielding, and you can take a screwdriver and just very lightly back these out. And we're just trying to, you almost have to put some pressure on it to get it to spin, but not so much that it kind of forces it in, you know, but you're gonna pull the center of it out and then pull the whole fastener out. Like that. Let me get this one up here as well. Pop that on out. And then this piece will come out. You may have to take your flathead and just kind of pry behind here carefully. If I can get a good grip on it here. We'll just pop that right on out. And then that'll expose these fasteners. So they're going to be two 10mm head screws. Get them out. We can pull our tail light out now. Just kind of wiggle it and pull it straight back. And then we'll disconnect it. So you can push down on the center of that tab, pull it out. We'll set our light off to the side, and from this point on, anything we do to one side of our Subaru, we'll also do to the other side because it'll be set up the exact same way. Now if you look at our wheel well edge here, we're gonna have three plastic push pin fasteners we need to pull out. In my experience with these Subarus, sometimes they'll be set up a little different. You might have a mud flap here, or maybe just one of these fasteners. Either way, whatever is along this edge and connecting the fascia to our wheel well liner and whatnot, those fasteners are gonna have to come out. So with these, you just push down on the center of it, and then you can pry the fastener out. And then when you're ready to put it back in, you can have it like that. You push it in and seat that center portion. So, but for now, we're pulling them out. Worried about that, so get all three of these out. Now if you move underneath our Subaru along the edge here, behind our rear tire, we're gonna have two more push pin type fasteners. With these, you can take a trim tool or even a flathead screwdriver and pry these out. Sometimes a trim tool makes it much easier. A lot of times, you know, especially if your car has some miles on it, these can get kind of dirty and kind of difficult to take out, but still manageable even with just a flathead. But then if you work your way to the center here, we're gonna have three more push pins. So we need to take this one out, one in the middle, and then this one over here as well. So same difference, we'll grab our tool and get these pulled out. Now at this point, with an extra set of hands, we can get our fascia removed. I did put some painter's tape along the seams here where we're gonna be working so we don't scratch anything up. But what you're gonna do is just I like to kind of wiggle the corners around a little bit just to try to loosen it up. And then just start to carefully kind of pop this off. And these Subarus, they actually come apart pretty easy. So once you get to about this point, this one just literally come right off. And then it looks like over on the driver's side, I'll switch spots here. And on the driver's side, we're gonna have a couple of connections that we're gonna undo. Maybe just one, looks like this one here. And you can pull down on or push down on the center of the tab, pull this out, that'll release it, and then we can set our fascia off to the side. So now, if you look, we're gonna have the sensor here that's connected to our bumper beam, and since the bumper beam's gonna have to come off, we're gonna remove this temporarily. So take a trim tool or a flathead screwdriver, kind of pry underneath it, pop it up, and then I'll just kind of tuck it right in here out of the way for now. Now we can get our bumper beam removed. So this is gonna be held in place with three fasteners, one here, on the bottom, and one on the inside edge here. And we're gonna use a 14mm and an extension to pull these out. So I went ahead, the other side is already, those bolts are removed, so now we can just pull our bumper beam straight off and get it out of the way. Now what we need to do is let our exhaust come down a little bit. That way it'll give us some more room to work to get to some of the attachment points when we go to put the hitch in. Before you do that though, I do suggest taking a strap and just running it from side to side. That way we can kind of control how fast and how far we actually let the exhaust come down. We're gonna have a total of 5 rubber isolator hangers. So 2 on each muffler. And this is, of course, because we have dual exhaust. If you have single exhaust, you're only gonna have 3 hangers. But here's what one of them looks like. With these, you can spray them down with some soapy water or some type of lubricant to make it easier to pry off. And then you just take a pry bar and work it off. The other one's gonna be located kind of in this corner here on this side of the muffler. I'll just work it off here. Get that one off, and then if we follow the exhaust pipe towards the front of our car, we're gonna have that last one right here. So pop that off, and then we can loosen up our strap a little bit and let the exhaust come down a few inches. Now if you look inside of the frame rail, you're gonna see these 2 black plugs that are coming up through there. So they're actually pushed in from the bottom, but we're gonna get them out. You can just pry down on the top of them. Or you can always do this from the bottom side too. Take your tool and pry them out like that. Either way works fine as long as we get them out of there. At this point we can grab our hitch and we can put it on the vehicle. So those are just gonna go to the openings in the frame. That's gonna slide right on over. And over the studs, you can take the new flange nuts that they give you. We're just gonna get these started on hand tight. That way the hitch is secured while we work on the rest of the hardware. For these other 2 pieces of hardware, these 2 attachment points are gonna be the same. You're gonna take a bolt, split lock washer, and 2 flat washers. Put them on, and then these are just going to thread right into place. So we'll get these started hand tight as well. Underneath on our frame rail, there's gonna be a hole right here, and that lines up with one of the arms that went into the frame that were on our hitch. That makes sense? So we're gonna get hardware in there as well. You're gonna take the coiled end of your fish wire, and it helps to kind of put a bend in it like that. At least it helps me. And you're gonna push it up through, and then you're gonna feed it towards the back of the car, and there'll be a hole in the hitch there. I'm gonna grab it and pull it through that. And then you're gonna take a bolt, a star washer, and a spacer block like this. You're gonna thread that bolt onto the fish wire, and be careful. I think they only give you one of these fish wires, so try not to, destroy it, because you'll need it for the other side. So feed the hardware through the opening, and then drop it down. And you're gonna remove that fish wire. I'm just gonna pull mine right off. You can usually unthread them, but I already did the other side, so I don't need to keep it. With that down, you're gonna take a flat washer, a split lock washer, and a nut. And it helps if you kind of put some side pressure on the washers to hold the bolt steady. Makes it a lot easier to get the nut started. Now that we have all the hardware in place and hand tight, we can snug everything down. This bolt here, or this nut rather, 14mm socket. For these two, I'm going to use a 17. Then we can move on to the one on the very bottom. Underneath here, this nut, you can use either a 19 millimeter or a 3/4 inch will work as well. Now what you need to do is come back with the torque wrench and tighten down all the hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. If you don't have a torque wrench, you can always get one here at eTrailer, or a lot of times you go to your local auto parts store and they'll have one there available that you can rent. Once you have the hitch completely torqued down, at this point we can go ahead and raise our exhaust back into position the opposite way that we lowered it. With these, a lot of times you can just re-lubricate and then just kind of push them on by hand. So it really shouldn't be a reason to have to break out your pry bar or your big screwdriver again. Once it is supporting itself, at this point we can go ahead and remove our strap. Now you can secure the sensor, which I've done. So this just pushes back into an opening in the hitch there, and then they give you a zip tie that you can run through it and through the hitch to secure it on the side. Now at this point we can come to our fascia and trim a portion of it out so it'll fit around the hitch. There's a diagram and the instructions with measurements that you can follow, and so I went ahead and drew that out. To cut this, it's somewhat thin plastic. You could probably use a utility knife or a pair of snips, something like that, but to speed things up, I'm going to use a Dremel tool, so I'll go ahead and get this cut out. With our fascia trimmed out, now we can simply just reinstall it the opposite way that we removed it. If you had any electrical connectors, don't forget to plug those back in. And essentially all this is just gonna go back together the opposite way. We'll just snap this back in and re-secure it down. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the EcoHitch Trailer Hitch receiver on our 2022 Subaru Outback Wagon.